weekend, 24 on Sunday alone, and some unbelievable drama.
Especially at the Etihad.
Yeah, especially there, where Kulusevski's late goal for Tottenham at Man City means the champions have dropped points again, and there were a few things that made Haaland just a little bit angry.
You know what that result means, Kels? The title race is wide open. Arsenal now 2 points clear at the top. Could this be the season?
It might just be, but Jurgen Klopp says none of us will ever forget Liverpool's win over Fulham. That keeps them in second place. We'll discuss a game full of worldies.
And we could have the first managerial sacking of the season. Paul Heckingbottom was on the brink after Sheffield United were thrashed at Burnley.
There is so much to talk about on a weekend that brought us yet another Premier League epic. Well, that 3-3 draw at the Etihad, dramatic 3-3 draw, means that Manchester City are in third in the table. Liverpool's very late show against Fulham means they're up to second. They're 2 points behind Arsenal, who beat Wolves 2-1 at the Emirates. Aston Villa still in fourth after their draw at Bournemouth. Newcastle leapfrog Manchester United after they beat them at St James's Park. And at the other end of the table, Sheffield United are rock bottom after they lost 5-0 at Burnley. It is being widely reported today that manager Paul Heckingbottom will be sacked. Of course, we're across that and we'll keep you up to date if anything does happen. Everton's win at Nottingham Forest, big one for them. It moves them up into 18th. It means they're 2 points behind Luton, who lost again, this time at Brentford. And there's no time to catch your breath. There are 10 more Premier League fixtures this week. It's all to come. Luton up against Arsenal on Tuesday night. It should be straightforward for Arsenal as they hope to extend their lead at the top of the table. But big games elsewhere at both ends of the table. Nottingham Forest with an unimpressive performance at the weekend against Everton. We'll be looking to put that right as they travel to Fulham. Sheffield United may be under new management by the time they face Liverpool on Wednesday evening. Manchester City are off to Aston Villa. City going there without Rodri, who's going to be suspended. A big game that night for Manchester United. They're at home to Chelsea. And then the Thursday night games, Everton looking for points now desperately at the bottom end of the table after their points deduction, up against Newcastle. And they are hit by injuries. It's going to be so stretched for them at this stage of the season. But they need to make sure they can get all 3 points to keep pace with the teams towards the top of the table. Big game for Tottenham as well, as they're up against West Ham. It's what is always a spicy encounter. Talking of which, spicy encounters, Lola Hughes and Darren Bent are with us in the studio today to talk about all things, but we're going to start at the top of the table because it's been absolutely chaotic. It's been very, very frosty in the UK all this week. In fact, so cold that some people have been having to revert to special measures to make sure that they keep up to sort of... Did you have a bicycle pump in this coat?
No, it's just the side view.
Was it definitely yours?
That's real.
That's real. You tried that on the other day, didn't you?
I tried that on the other day and I shrunk. You wouldn't see me. It was so big on me.
It's like The Rock's coat.
No, it's just the side view, which is front ways.
It's a duvet.
It's perfect. It's exactly what was needed. Monclesi.
And it was needed because it was very, very cold this weekend, Friday and Saturday in particular. In fact, the title race looks like all those videos that are going around at the moment, all those memes of cars sort of sliding into trouble. That's what the title race is like at the moment. Everybody's kind of dropping points, finding themselves in
Under Arsenal, you mean?
Well, Arsenal, even in the second half against Wolves, it felt like they were trying their best to kind of skid themselves into trouble in that one.
I hear what you're saying.
Liverpool certainly did against Fulham, even though they got 3 points. Manchester City dropped points against the Tottenham side that they were widely expected to wipe the floor with.
Snow skid,
But it just means it's really exciting.
It's very exciting.
I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but I'll be honest, I didn't know where to go after seeing you in that big coat.
No, I thought it was brilliant weekend. This weekend with the goals and the late drama. Obviously, you know, the Man City and everything that happened there. Arsenal, you know, winning a home game, which when we went into the game, I was saying, listen, it's as tough as it is, all the home games against Spurs and missed chances, they will find their feet at some stage because we know that they'll have that run in and around that February where they don't lose any games. And so you have to be winning the home games. And I was pleased with the way Arsenal started. Obviously, it got a bit shaky at the end, you know, but like they saw it through. And that's the main thing now, to get it done, Kels. You know, I thought that at the start of the game, when we watched this game, I thought Wolves done pretty well. But then it was this just brilliant, intricate play from Arsenal, and you broke them open. And what normally happens with Arsenal is that with that low block, they find it very hard to break it down. But They did. They broke it down very early and they got themselves in front. Great play, Zinchenko moving it quicker on the edge of the box, moving the Wolves players about. And then you're 2-0 up and you're thinking, wow, this is exactly what you want from a home game.
I mean, look, as you say, they made it difficult for themselves later on in the game. Wolves got back into it and you know, it was a little bit tense towards the end for Arsenal. And that's just a lovely finish, that goal. But, you know, the difference that Odegaard makes to Arsenal is huge. I know he got the goal there, but the first half in particular, they look fantastic.
Yeah, and he's probably somebody who's not been at his best at the start of this season. I mean, last season he was phenomenal. For me, the best number 10 in the league last year. This season, definitely, people maybe got a little bit tighter to him, haven't given him enough space, and he struggled a little bit. But certainly now, the last couple of performances, certainly in Europe, and then that one at the weekend in the first half, he's starting to get it together again. He's so vital to what Arsenal do well, getting him the ball, little passes. He always seems to choose the right option, whether it be a shot or a pass.
Through those lines.
The little break of the lines as well. I mean, he's been phenomenal. But again, Arsenal, just ticking along nicely. I still don't think they've hit the heights they hit last season. There were times last season I thought the football they played was outstanding. I don't think we've seen that yet, other than the European game in the week. But I don't think Lons were that great.
I think they've had to sacrifice a little bit offensive to be a bit more solid defensively. They'll flow what I've seen, because you know, if last season, what was it, 14 times they scored like in the first 15 minutes. But what else they were doing in those first few minutes, they would easily concede as well. And I think that's what Mikel's kind of tried to change, tried to shore it up, to start fast but not leave the back door open. I think that's what we've done. He's closed up the back door.
It's definitely lower risk, and I think that's important because, a big part of the way Arteta wants to play is be aggressive quite early and get those early goals. But I agree with you. I think they were losing some of the solidity at the back, and then they were making things difficult for themselves. And I do think, although there are moments this season that haven't been, I think that second goal was kind of quintessential Arsenal, but there are games which have been a little bit tougher, not the best thing to watch. I think the Brentford game was a prime example, and Odegaard has been off it in matches, and he was starting to feel the pressure. But then at the same time, Arsenal fans can probably feel positive about the fact they're still creating a lot of chances that they're not putting away. And if that starts to click, and Nketiah finds that form of rhythm that he can tap into, and they share the goals a little bit more, Jesus as well, then they'll be even better. But to be where they are and still not be at their peak is definitely reassuring, because sometimes you have to win ugly. That's just the reality of the Premier League.
And that's what Manchester City were hoping that they were going to be able to do against Tottenham. They kept giving Tottenham the opportunity to come back into that game. It led to a very frustrating evening for Manchester City, capped at the end by the decision by referee Simon Hooper. So there's a foul here. It's against Newcastle, and correctly, I think everybody would agree, he decides to play against Tottenham correctly to play the advantage. But then he then seems to see Jack Grealish in possibly what he thinks is an offside position. And whereas we normally see them let that go and bring it back if, you know, VAR then looks at it and decides it's offside, he then blows the whistle to stop the game. And I think there was a moment of there was a pause in the ground as people thought, is that the ref's whistle? Has he stopped the game? And there was a kind of confusion, because we're not used to seeing that anymore. We're used to seeing them let that kind of opportunity go. And it was just you can understand the frustration from the City players in that situation.
I'm out, bro. I'm out with the decisions now, because if you say something,
that's not a VAR thing as well, because everybody keeps saying, "Oh, I hate VAR now."
No, it's not even VAR.
It's also it's not clear, I think, as well, because some people are saying, "Oh, maybe it's because Haaland didn't find his balance and he thought Haaland wasn't going to get up, so he was going to pull it back for a free kick." Some people say maybe he was actually signalling for a free kick all along. I think it's the lack of understanding and the lack of clarity which makes it even more confusing, because traditionally it's going to be the lines person that's going to flag, which will then communicate to the referee to blow their whistle. But if the linesman isn't flagging, you should now, in this scenario, City really had a lot of opportunities they didn't stick away, which is the real reason they didn't win this game. Not necessarily this single mistake, but it still is a mistake and it pulls the focus away. But like Ian said, you get lost in that decision and it takes away from the real scenario of the game. And the scenario was that City had the opportunity to win it, and they didn't.
Yeah, papered over some cracks there. Like I said, I'm not going to really comment on that side of it, simply because I feel that I done a game
on
the other
which side of it? On the refereeing side of it?
Yeah, because
because you're done with.
I'm done. I'm done, because you can't win with the conversation if you don't say something about the referee. People say, "Why didn't you say something?" If you do, people say you're picking on them too much, so you can't win. So what I was going to say, Kelsey, is
fair criticism, I think, is reasonable. I think to say that was a bizarre decision,
yes,
and one that we wouldn't normally see. It was an unusual decision. I think that's
you've
fair
seen
to
big
say.
injuries to players because the referees haven't blown the whistle. So, but in that instance there where he's got, I don't understand. It's consistency. I think the problem that's the problem. It's the consistency. Yeah. Just let it go. We've seen players go through, them not blow the whistle, they get injured, and then they go, okay, it was a foul on the halfway line. We'll just blow the whistle then. In this instance, he doesn't do that. We know he does that. Doesn't allow play to go on, and that's where people and everyone associated to football get so frustrated. Because where's the consistency? You want people to give referees and the VAR a little bit of slack, and that's fair enough. But then you've got to then show a level of consistency if people go, okay, well, they're at least trying to do it. In that scenario there was no reason to wave on and then blow the whistle. It just didn't make sense to me.
And I think there's a reality to this situation, right, which is we've seen this season some objective mistakes that have happened around VAR. You know, there's been some examples of that. And then there's been some more subjective situations that coaches and fans and players have not been happy with. And you have to talk about them differently because this seems like and feels like an objective mistake, right? You see the situation, you think, okay, but there are other ones which are a bit different and they're a bit more 50-50. And I think you can't look at them with the same lens and the same criticism. And there also has to be an acceptance that officials, unfortunately, can't be perfect all of the time. But it's the level of the mistake and how it impacts the game, which is the biggest context you've got to consider.
I think we've got to give credit to Tottenham because as much as everybody was saying, you know, is he going to play that high line? Are they going to go for it? They've got players missing. And Tottenham, you have to say, and you rightly said, they missed a lot of chances, City, which they normally take. But Tottenham stayed in that game and rode their luck. And what we saw was clinicalness from them. You know, clinical from Son, clinical from Lo Celso, and in the end, Kulusevski scored the goal. And what is great about this season is that a team like Tottenham will go there without some of their top guys and have a go. Yeah. You know, not go and say, right, we're going to stay back and definitely maybe lose the game because you're trying to defend, but they're going to have a go at them because at the moment, there is a fragility about Manchester City, especially on that left side. You know, if you've got, especially when they had Kovacic over there, you've got Doku over there and Gvardiol. It's the left side of Manchester City that's not quite got up to speed with how they're doing their stuff. So that's where you want to try and attack them. And even the first goal came from that side. But I'm just pleased to see a team like Tottenham just say, well, let's just have a go then, instead of just like not getting anything. Because if they don't do that, they definitely don't win. They don't get anything out of that game.
Is there also an argument that that is the most pragmatic thing that Ange Postecoglou could do with the group of players that he has available to him, that he has no fit defenders? And so he says, well, we are clean. I think their XG was something like 0.47. Yeah. So they weren't creating clear-cut chances. They just managed to score 3 goals in the process. So he's like, do you know what? We know our attacking players can do it. We know our defenders aren't anywhere near our first choice defenders, certainly in terms of central defence. So what we'll do is we'll keep the ball as far away from that end of the pitch as we possibly can. There's something quite sensible about that, even though it looks a little bit chaotic and a little bit reckless. But it looks reckless. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's entirely sensible.
Well, it's high risk, it's high reward, and the error.
But maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe letting the defenders see more of the ball is higher risk if they are those defenders, maybe.
And the mistake that Basuma made for City's third goal, it was, I think, they were playing the same way that got them the other 3 goals. So you have to play that way and play in that philosophy to then get the rewards that you want. And Spurs, the way that they're playing this season, if you give them an inch, they will certainly take a mile. And I think that, like, having that as your core philosophy, as much as it became their downfall and a bit of a joke in that Chelsea game, that is their philosophy, and they will win a lot more games and get a lot more points than they will lose.
In games. That's the thing about this Spurs side under Postecoglou. They'll get beat, they'll get hammered a couple of times, but they'll win a lot of games. They'll always be in games. Even the games where they've lost the last 3, the Villa game, for instance, they had chances to see that game off in the first 15 minutes. The Chelsea game, first 15, 20 minutes, they could have scored 2, 3, 4 up. When they're missing the chances and they're getting beat, I can understand why Ange Postecoglou will look at it and go, yeah, it's disappointing. I don't want to lose games, but they're creating chances. In every single game they've lost, they've not been blown out the water. The Chelsea game, the result, it looks bad. But if you look at the context of that game, they go. So I think playing this way, they'll always be, whoever they're playing against, they'll always be in games.
He said that he told the players at half-time, look, this is how I want you to play. If we get beat, my fault.
Yeah.
Go out and do it. Don't worry about making mistakes. And I think, we always talk about vibes with Tottenham, and it gets to the stage where it feels a little bit kind of scratching the surface and not really. But it is important, the atmosphere that he is creating in the players, the confidence that he's creating in the players, and the belief in the way that he wants to play.
There's nothing. I don't think there's anything that you can hear as a player more than a manager having the kind of confidence in you and saying, "Listen, go and do the stuff I'm saying to you. Enjoy yourself doing it. I'll take the blame if it goes wrong." Yeah. Because that's what we saw in that particular game. But what we saw more than anything, which really punished City, was the clinical nature in which Tottenham took those chances. Because like you said, the XG was 0.5. I don't know what it was.
It was about a half. I can't remember. Something roundabout there.
Whatever it was. And so when you do put in a performance like that and you get something, you know what it's like on the bus on the way back. Everybody's buzzing. Everybody's the momentum. And when you get the other players back, if you can stay doing what you're doing now and getting results against the best in the league, honestly, then you think what Tottenham are going to be capable of doing once they do get the fit players back. Because what I like about him, he's not complaining about who's out, because they've got some top players out. They're just getting it done. And they got it done against City. And that should be a worrying thing for a lot of people.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think it shows a lot about how teams can continue to take points off Manchester City as well. This result, the Wolves result, the Arsenal result, which is, if you can intercept and get to those passes first or win those individual duels and battles, you can get something out of the game, because that's how they play their football. If you can disrupt their rhythm, you're going to get something from the game. And I think Tottenham have done that well, and some other teams have done that well this season. And we haven't seen that weakness before in City.
No, 3 wins in their last 8 Premier League games for Manchester City. And as you said, there are times in previous seasons where they haven't quite been perfect, or they've dropped a couple of points here and there. But this sort of consistently below par performance feels very unusual for them. And yes, they're dealing with a bit of more of a changeover of players than they've had in previous seasons. De Bruyne is still to come back into this, of course, and they're going to be playing in the next game without Rodri in the side when they face Aston Villa because of suspension. Grealish, but he's less of a key player in that side, will be missing as well. And it feels as though there is a weakness there, which is why we started off by saying the title race is exciting.
It's wide open.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the kind of change of players, as you said, losing certain players, key players, Gundogan, likes of this, and players coming in. But I think if you show real belief against Manchester City, I think that's the biggest thing. When you're playing against a side like that, like Manchester City will take risks because they've got the ball, so they'll always flood people forward. We've seen over the last couple of seasons, I mean, Brentford was a prime example last season when they went to the Etihad and won. If you can show real belief and commit men forward and play the game you want to play, of course you're going to have to relinquish some of the possession because they'll have a lot of it and chances. But if you can keep pushing forward and keep creating opportunities, they will always give teams a chance to score. It's whether you take the chances or not.
That's exactly right.
And Spurs did that. You gave Spurs the opportunities when they went forward. They took them. So if you take your chances, you'll be in games. But I think the biggest thing is when you play City, you have to believe that you can get something from the game. If you go into that game thinking, I'm going to be 4 or 5, you've got no chance. And I think teams in this little run that they're having have all believed, Chelsea, a prime example, Pochettino, we can go and get something in this game. They're Manchester City, but we can go and win it.
The Villa game's going to be fascinating because of the way that he sets up so specifically for the opponent and tweaks things. And obviously, if we've seen it, Unai Emery's seen it. He knows exactly how to get past them. That's going to be incredible. Because then after that, they've got a run of games like Luton and Palace, Everton, that they would hope that they were able to win, and teams in there that have struggled to score. And then in the middle of January at the end, sort of sandwiching all of that is Newcastle, which is another team who are going to be able to fly out the blocks against them and cause them trouble. But that Villa game is going to be really interesting.
It's a very exciting game, the Villa game, because Villa from back to front, they look very solid. Obviously, their goalkeeper's very good. I think Constance having a fantastic season. You know, Douglas in the middle. What's Douglas Luiz? And Kamara. You know, Leon Bailey saw him the other day looking unbelievable. And then Ollie Watkins is now starting to score those goals and being that focal threat that we all believe he can be. All he needs to do for me now, Darren, is just score more, just consistently, just continually score more goals, because he looks very dangerous. And it will be a game Aston Villa will fancy against the Manchester City side, especially with no Rodri, with the fact that if you can take the chances, like you said there, Darren, you can take the chances, Kells, against City, it brings a whole different City to you, simply because they still have to come forward, but they still are leaving gaps that if you can take the half chance, you will beat City. And this is what I'm believing this season, is that people are now believing, you know something, like Tottenham went there with a weakened side and said, you know what, we're gonna roll the dice. You know, we're fortunate because they missed some chances, but in the end, it paid off. And that is what teams have got to do against City. And I think that it's going to be very exciting.
I thought you were coming in there. You were just nodding. You were just nodding in agreement.
Thank you.
So wise.
Just very much agree with all of this. But what we've said is City dropping points, of course, has opened things up again at the top of the table. Arsenal, as we've covered, are one of the sides who are poised to take advantage of that. But Liverpool also, with that win, we'll be talking about them very shortly. It was a late show at Anfield against Fulham after some nervy moments. Well, look, as you've been saying during the break, it wasn't necessarily a commanding, convincing performance from Liverpool, but it was exciting.
Always exciting at Liverpool, especially with their home record. You know, you could see that Liverpool, the press is not as good as it was. You know, something that, you know, they used to be amazing at. It's not what it was. And the midfield's starting to get sorted out, and then the defence as well is still a little bit creaky. But at Anfield, it just feels very difficult for a team to feel like they're going to be able to win, because something happens, and I don't know. Now I'm talking about witchcraft. You know, in respect of Anfield at home. You know, you're Fulham. You go there, you score 3 goals. You're thinking 3 goals away from home, you're going to win. But like not at Liverpool, not at Anfield, not that crowd. It's amazing.
And 4 brilliant goals as well. Every single one of them.
How can they not give that first one to Trent, like saying that this is an own goal? Look at that.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous not giving him that goal. I don't know if that's coming out if it doesn't hit his head.
So
what about that one? Wow.
That one from McAllister. And
his first goal as well for Liverpool.
Yeah, it's just an amazing finish for him in the Premier League. Mo Salah involved in that one, but he'll be upset not to get on the score sheet.
Oh, he's livid.
And they were they were so close to them, all 4 being from outside the area.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one comes back and Trent's just inside the 18-yard box, but all long-range efforts. And the problem is, I bet none of them win goal of the month because they'll pull votes from each other. Those goals. Which one would you go for if you had to pick one of them? Which one would it be?
I would have given
McAllister.
Trent's free kick, but that doesn't really count.
Over McAllister?
Probably McAllister.
No, McAllister actually, because the way that
beautiful.
travels, it's an absolute bullet.
It's a beauty because it was on its way out. It's bouncing, it's on its way out, and it kind of caught it a little bit on the, you know, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful one.
It's interesting that their goals scored by midfielders and scored by Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is a hybrid midfielder now. Who's kind of it's that development of this new Liverpool team. There was a lot of fuss made at the start of the season about Liverpool 2.0, and and they're not quite there yet, as you said, but they're starting to feel like a team. You know what they're about. You know what is expected from each of those players within that system.
Mm. Do you see me? Sorry, I thought.
It's not what you hear. Tell me
No, I thought he was looking over there, Kel. No, Kel's like, no, I hear you. In respects of what they're doing and what they're trying to do, like you're seeing Darwin Núñez now, Diaz and Salah, even though Salah didn't score, or Darwin Núñez, or Diaz, none of them scored. The fact that they can get goals from other areas of the pitch now is another thing they can put in they can add to their armory, simply because it's probably going to be those 3 guys, Salah, Núñez and Diaz, who are going to get the goals. But if you can get them from other places and you've got this never say die, and you've got your midfielder putting pressure on people, getting forward, scoring goals as well. You know, if they can kind of add that into the away performances and maybe tighten it up at the back a bit, then Liverpool again are going to be a very tough side to beat, because they've got goals from everywhere. They're getting goals from everywhere now. All the midfielders and people are chipping in now, and the 3 guys up front.
I think they've got a lot of firepower, as you said there. I think that's what maybe separates them. Maybe not from Manchester City, but Arsenal, who were thereabouts, good players. I mean, Mo Salah didn't score in the 4 yesterday, but his numbers speak for themselves over the last.
And he should have scored. He had a brilliant chance in the game, especially for him.
So it wouldn't surprise me if the next game now he gets a couple, if it's still livid. But yeah, I think Liverpool's firepower will separate them from certainly the rest of the Premier League. But as you said there, I put them in a transition still, because they're still trying to figure out that midfield. I don't think McAllister's a holder. I think he's more of a number 8, can get box to box, can create. I don't think he wants to sit Endo. I think once he gets that will help. But again, if for Liverpool, the same way you look at Arsenal, haven't played that well, but still top. Liverpool are still trying to find some things out, and they're 3rd in the table. Or I think they might be second. So second in the table. Second in the table. Again, that's a positive for Jurgen Klopp, because once they do hit fire and they do get to where they need to be, they're going to take some beating as well.
And we're joined now by Harvey Elliott from Liverpool. Harvey, thanks so much for your time. Good to talk to you.
No problem. Hi, how are you? You okay?
All good, all good. Harvey, we're just talking about the win, and obviously Liverpool would want to win every game comfortably. But if you're not going to win it comfortably, is that maybe the second best way to win a game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the best way of doing it. That's for sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, we still got the 3 points, and we made it an interesting game for everyone. And it's what football's all about, in my opinion. But yeah, as I said, it's not our main goal to do it like that. But yeah, most importantly, we won.
Was the manager upset about the goals conceded? Did he say anything afterwards about the conceding goals?
Yeah. You know, I think as a team we knew as well that the goals we conceded weren't good enough. It's not, you know. It was a hard game, you know. Fulham made it very hard for us, and yeah, the goals weren't, as I said, good enough. But the way we came back and the mentality, I think you couldn't really complain about that. But we did make it hard for ourselves, that's for sure.
And we were just chatting there about the goals. Every one of them was fantastic. Two of them scored by midfielders. One of them scored by what we're now calling a hybrid midfielder in Trent Alexander-Arnold. Obviously, you might have mixed feelings about midfielders scoring because it's your place in the team. But have you talked about with Jurgen Klopp your role in this midfield, this new look Liverpool midfield this season?
Yeah, I mean, we've had brief conversations here and there. You know, I've played Europa League and the Cup games in midfield and on the wing as well. So for me, I think it's just about waiting for my opportunity, you know, and just making sure I take it. But yeah, for me, I'm just over the moon for all the other lads to see the goals fly in yesterday and how wonderful they were as well. I mean, everyone has to chip in and score here and there. It can't always be the forwards. And you know, when people are popping up with 35-yard screamers, it's I mean, it's just a great game to watch. Yeah, so you know, we're all practicing and training and stuff, and making sure, as I said, it's not just a forward score, and we need to make our part, and that's exactly what we done yesterday.
I was just wondering, Harvey, did you have a favourite of the goals? And